Welcome to part 2 of the story. If you missed part 1, the link is in the description below. Enjoy the video. Killian barged into Ariel's room through the window and quickly covered her mouth so she wouldn't scream from surprise. Hearing the guards outside, he retreated, leaving with a smile as if to assure her they would meet again. With the agility of an assassin, he leapt from the second floor with ease and vanished into the forest. When the guards arrived, she pointed them toward the direction he had gone, asking them to pursue. Yet her eyes caught a stain of blood on the wall. She thought they would never be able to catch him and wondered with worry if he had been hurt. The next morning, Ariel reflected that he had appeared unscathed when she last saw him, which meant the injury must have happened at the manor, though even then he had evaded capture. Entering the living room where a vision was, she overheard him insisting that Isa must have been the one who sent the intruder and that everyone was safe. Siegfried then remarked that the guards had failed to apprehend the trespasser, adding that perhaps a witness was listening in. Standing just beyond the door, Ariel stepped forward to greet them with a polite good morning. Avishan turned with surprise and asked what she was doing there. She announced that the intruder had introduced himself as Killian, describing his silver hair and red eyes. Siegfried's gaze darkened as he speculated that Isa was the one who wanted him dead, apologizing that the others had been drawn into danger because of him. Avishan immediately reassured him that such words were unnecessary and promised to arrange personal guards for the prince's safety. Siegfried refused, claiming he could protect himself, and his smile in that moment caused Ariel to blush. She thought to herself that he had just given the most beautiful smile she had ever seen, and when she noticed his cheeks tinged red and his eyes softened, her heart quickened. The prince confessed with warmth that if it had not been for her, he might have been gravely injured. She was taken aback by his gratitude. Ariel smiled, admitting she had not expected him to thank her. His face reddened once again as he dismissed them lightly, urging her and Avishan to leave. While warning Avishan not to laugh, hours later, Ariel remembered that it was the beginning of the summer festival held each year in Elifritz. Preparing eagerly, she mentioned her plans aloud, only for the prince to appear on the stairs, intrigued by the mention of a festival he had heard about but never seen. With sparkling eyes, she teased that she would go hunt down handsome companions while enjoying the sights. Avishan, giving her an annoyed smile, reminded her that they were attending as representatives of House Elifritz and that she must remain with her guards. She protested loudly, insisting that it was a festival after all, only for the prince to counter that she must remain careful, as Killian had not yet been caught. She argued she needed no guards, boasting that she had once saved him herself when thugs had attacked. He insisted that she still needed them and hesitated before admitting there was another reason, though his gaze faltered and he turned red before brushing it off with a dismissive never mind. Ariel accused him of having a habit of saying that, while he glared and ordered her to stop, drawing laughter from her brothers. Finally, she declared it was getting late and waved them off, Avishan waving back with a warning for her to stay safe. At the festival, the streets filled with crowds, music, food, and laughter. Ariel changed into ordinary clothes, delighted to at last enjoy the celebration she had been waiting for. Escaping her guards, she whispered to herself that she was free, even if only for 2 hours. One of the guards later discovered a note left behind where she promised to return before the festival's true start, urging them not to worry. Wandering the quieter streets, she realized she had strayed into a secluded area with few people. Nearly colliding with 2 men struggling to carry something heavy, she froze. Their brisk steps and the secrecy of their path struck her as strange, especially since the burden required 2 to lift. Her breath caught when she saw a hand slip from the sack they carried, and on that wrist was the handkerchief she had tied to Siegfried. He was unconscious. She hid quickly to avoid being noticed, while above on a rooftop, Killian observed her silently. A smile curving his lips, she followed to where the men entered but found the door locked. Scanning the surroundings, she spotted another way in and climbed a pile of sacks to reach a window. Inside, the dusty air filled her lungs as she crept forward. Her heart sank when she spotted Siegfried tied with ropes, his mouth gagged to prevent sound. She hurried to him, cutting the restraints with a dagger, and listened as he asked in confusion where they were and what had happened. She whispered back that she had wondered the same, teasing whether he had come to the festival despite once claiming he disliked loud events. Her tone betrayed a sting of hurt, for he seemed not to like her, reminding him it was unfair since he had only ever asked once. He answered that it had been her fault, though his words were cut short by a sudden noise. The door opened, and there stood Killian with a lamp in hand, his hood shadowing his eyes. His smile widened as he called this their third encounter, remarking that 3 coincidences often meant fate and suggesting there might be something between them. His voice hardened when he declared that for the prince, this place would be his grave. Siegfried's defiance rose instantly, challenging whether the assassin truly believed he would allow himself to be killed so easily, even as he slipped free from the rope. Killian chuckled darkly, urging Ariel to come to him, claiming she was too precious to die and confessing that he had taken quite a liking to her. When she instinctively stepped back, Killian splashed a bucket of oil over Siegfried. Surrounded by wood and kindling, the danger of fire was undeniable. Siegfried asked how much Killian had been paid, offering tenfold more, but the assassin laughed that it would be simpler to kill him here and now. With calm resolve, the prince declared that he had already gained the time he needed. He stood, dagger in hand, just as Killian hurled the lamp toward him. Siegfried dodged, the flame igniting the floor as fire blazed around them. The prince struck with the dagger, forcing Killian to unsheath his sword, and soon the room echoed with the clash of steel. Killian snarled that he should have killed him that very first night, to which Siegfried retorted that he would not escape intact. Blow after blow wore Killian down, until the prince's dominance was clear. Asking if he wished to continue, Siegfried offered instead a chance. He wanted Killian's skill on his side. He revealed plans to join the monster hunt in 2 weeks and demanded the assassin fight with him. Killian faltered at the unexpected proposal, but Siegfried did not pause, turning away with Ariel at his side. She teased him about his dagger's sharpness and whispered with a smile that she could hide it beneath her skirts. Later, Ariel dressed once more in noble attire and approached the prince playfully, suggesting that though it was late, they should try to enjoy themselves. He looked startled as she urged that they eat and see the festivities, pointing out that he had been waiting, pretending otherwise, just because he wanted to join her. His cheeks flushed as he silently admitted the truth. Together, they sampled crackers and cookies from the stands, browsed handmade trinkets, and found themselves stealing glances into each other's eyes, her golden gaze meeting his deep violet. Noticing his unease amidst the dense crowd, Ariel asked gently if he wanted to hold her hand. He groaned but finally reached for her, only for her to take his wrist instead, insisting it was more comfortable. They continued wandering together, their laughter blending with the joy of the festival. Since she was taller, she guided him through the bustling paths until they reached a marionette play. Before them, a small stage displayed a boy and girl puppet dancing gracefully. Fascination lit Siegfried's face, and Ariel thought tenderly that he truly was still just a boy. He turned to her with quiet sincerity, thanking her again for everything earlier. She brushed off his gratitude, assuring him that even when outnumbered, they would face challenges together. His next words were tentative, asking if she would come to his rescue should he ever need it. Her answer was immediate and firm, promising that she would, and once more his cheeks turned red as her vow sank deep into his heart. In the next morning, Ariel searched for him while wondering why Siegfried had been so cold toward her. She soon spotted him with Avishan, both training with wooden swords. Avishan explained that they were preparing for the upcoming monster hunt, and he even invited her to join their practice. She caught the sword he tossed her way but refused, saying she did not want to get sweaty on a day like that. Siegfried turned his attention to her and questioned if she would also take part in the hunt, to which Avishan confidently stated that she was stronger than most knights. The prince then expressed interest in testing her skills himself, proposing a match where the one who lost grip of the sword first would be declared the loser. Without hesitation, Ariel lunged toward him in a direct attack, her eyes shifting from gentle to fierce. The clash of wood echoed as they struck, each taking turns in attack and defense. She thought back to the storehouse, realizing how powerful he truly was. He then wondered aloud if they had met in some other place before, but her high heels betrayed her balance and she stumbled, dropping the sword as she fell to the floor. He offered his hand to help her up, and she teased that he once disliked holding hands, questioning if he was suddenly fine with it now. He replied that the situation was different, and when pressed on why, he blushed violently, admitting that the mood had been unusual that day. She dismissed him, stating that younger men were not her type, and began to leave with evasion. Yet Siegfried caught her hand, insisting he wanted to know her type, claiming that as a prince he ought to understand what his subjects desired. With a smirk, she listed her standards: at least 190 centimeters tall, a title of count or higher, wealth exceeding 5 million erks, and no large belly. He turned away with a grimace, remarking that she had quite the talent for offending people. Some days later, Ariel dressed elegantly for the banquet hosted at Elifrit's manor, her red gown accentuating the hue of her eyes. Surrounded by noble ladies, she exchanged pleasantries until Lord Manuel approached, greeting her warmly and commenting on how long it had been. Their conversation was interrupted when murmurs rose around the hall, all eyes shifting towards Siegfried, who stood in the corner in formal attire, glaring. Ariel could not help but think how dashing he looked. Manuel asked if she would be free the following morning for a walk, but before she could answer, Siegfried deliberately bumped into him. With forced courtesy, the prince pardoned himself, only to slip again and kick Manuel in the back. Shocked, Ariel told him not to do such things, but Siegfried coldly pointed toward the exit, insisting the young lord take his leave. Once Manuel departed, she confronted Siegfried, noticing his red lips and odd behavior, asking if he had been drinking. He sank onto a couch, eyes heavy with exhaustion. She scolded him for his strange behavior toward Manuel, only for him to sigh in relief when she insisted the lord was not her type. Moments later, he closed his eyes and drifted into sleep, leaving her sighing as she brushed her hair back, calling him nothing more than a child. The following evening, with the hunt only a day away, nobles gathered around a long table filled with food and wine. Ariel grew tired of the noise and glanced across the table to find Siegfried seated opposite her, ignoring her gaze and turning away. Count Parisa sat beside her, complimenting the dessert and inviting her for a walk. Seeing Siegfried distracted, she accepted. When she took the count's hand to leave, Siegfried's sharp glare followed them. Beneath the stars outside, the count suddenly knelt and confessed he believed they were meant for each other, proposing marriage on the spot. Ariel gasped in shock, appalled by such a sudden and random proposal, her mind dismissing him as too short and too dull, especially after having been exposed to Siegfried's looks. But before she could refuse, the window burst open and Siegfried interrupted, declaring it a problem. She froze at the sight of him, wondering what he was doing there. He demanded the count reconsider, claiming Ariel had admitted she liked him. Horrified, she denied it, but Siegfried pressed further, accusing her of igniting his heart only to leave him in flames. Humiliated, the count fled, begging forgiveness, leaving Ariel glaring at the prince. She demanded to know why he did such things, fearing rumors would spread about her supposed feelings. He simply smiled and left without answering, leaving her with the dreadful thought that something terrible had just begun. At the day of the monster hunt, knights and nobles gathered with uniforms and horses. Ariel too was prepared, clad in a blue uniform, gray pants, her sword at her side and her hair tied in a ponytail. She silently prayed no rumors about her and the prince had reached town. Yet when she saw him arrive in hunting attire, she begrudgingly admitted to herself how handsome he looked. Passing by her without a word, he left her fuming, deciding he was not worth such thoughts, their horses carried them deep into the forest until a familiar voice startled her. Killian emerged, remarking on the unexpected meeting. She stiffened, recalling he had joined the prince's side, and told herself to keep distance. He pressed her for tips on killing sirens, claiming she was the only one he knew and even joking they had once been drinking companions. His teasing continued as he suggested they could be a good match. She glared sharply and slapped his hand away before he could touch her, warning him to keep his distance. After some time, her attention shifted when she found grapes from Corte village, eagerly gathering a basket and bringing it to a vision, only to stop when she saw him talking with Siegfried. She turned away, refusing to join them, and ended up sitting near Killian. When he pointed out her choice, she retorted it was not because of him but because no one else came near him, secretly realizing nobles avoided him altogether. Later, as they rode again, Killian pressed for more advice about sirens, and she curtly told him to stab the creatures through the heart. Up ahead, Siegfried watched the exchange with a frown. That evening, they arrived at an inn. Ariel sighed in relief at the thought of sleeping in a proper bed, only to be approached by a boy who relayed that someone wished to see her. When she demanded to know who, he refused, saying he had been told not to reveal the name. Irritated, she dismissed the message, only for the boy to return insisting that the person would not relent. Killian laughed loudly at her frustration, earning her wrath. Determined, she resolved to end the matter once and for all. She marched to where Siegfried waited, finding him alone at a secluded camp. He demanded to know why she lingered around Killian, questioning if it had been their first meeting after that night. She clarified there was nothing between them, insisting she understood his interest but could not accept such gestures. His blush betrayed that her words struck true, and she realized with shock that he might genuinely like her. He admitted that his actions had been meant to protect her, but her memory of his harsh expressions made her doubt. She confronted him, pressing him to confess his feelings. Blushing deeply, he asked if she would marry him, but she immediately refused, saying he did not meet her standards. To her, he was beautiful like a rose in a garden, but beauty was not enough. Perhaps in 5 years she might consider him again. He protested, insisting it was unfair to dismiss him over age, but she remained firm. With a fiery vow, he declared he would not give up until she changed her mind, while she sighed, knowing he would soon leave for the front lines and she would not see him for a long time. The following day, as they rode deeper into the wilderness, a vision cautioned the prince to beware of siren spells, for hallucinations could easily take hold. Ariel looked to the sky and froze. Hundreds of sirens filled the hills, their yellow eyes glowing, long hair flowing in varied colors, wings spread wide and dark. Panic spread among the hunters as the screeches of the sirens pierced the air, forcing all to cover their ears. Ariel acted swiftly, drawing her sword and cutting one down without hesitation. She heard a warning of danger behind her and rushed to aid a noble from another incoming siren. She trusted her brothers could manage, but her worry remained fixed on Siegfried, who might fall victim to their spell. Her fears proved true when she spotted him frozen, eyes blank, already under the siren's control. Desperation surged as she called out, realizing words would not break the enchantment. With blazing determination, she turned him to face her and excused herself silently, knowing only one way could free him from their hold. And in that instant, she did what was necessary. That's it for today. If you liked, don't forget to enable the YouTube notification bell and subscribe to follow the next parts. If you want a continuation, mention in comments. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.